Happy Tuesday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have a special guest here, Gator great Shane Matthews. Welcome to the Wolff Den. Great weekend, great time to have you on here. Should be a lot to chat about here.
Yeah, it was a tremendous night in the swamp. Billy Napier's first win, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes.
So you're actually on location. You're at Spurrier's and Visors, and we had a great dinner there Friday night. Just probably the hottest restaurant in Gainesville. Obviously, being associated with Steve is a big deal. But even aside from that, it's just a great place to hang out.
It is. They've done a phenomenal job with this place, Freddie Wiebe and his staff, and it's one of the largest restaurants in North Central Florida, maybe the state of Florida. But it's basically just a museum of Coach Spurrier, and good food, good place, good location, and it's doing very well.
Well, let's talk. Just give everyone a quick introduction for those who don't know who you are. Just a quick introduction, then we'll get into it.
Just Shane Matthews, played quarterback at Florida from 90 to 92, was SEC Player of the Year in 90 and 91, played 14 years in the NFL, and do a little podcast, do a little pregame radio show for Gator Football, and I'm the color analyst on the Gator Radio Network.
Yeah, well, let's start, I guess, from the beginning. You're from Cleveland, but finished high school in Mississippi. How do you end up in Florida as a Player of the Year of Mississippi?
Yeah, I grew up in the Delta up in North Mississippi in a little town called Cleveland, Mississippi, in the cotton fields. And we moved after my sophomore year to Pascagoula down on the Gulf Coast. And I was recruited from a lot of Southeastern Conference schools and narrowed it down to Florida and Florida State and LSU. And honestly, I don't know why I chose Florida. My first couple of years, I thought about transferring to Ole Miss where my dad played. But my parents wouldn't let me transfer and stuck it out. And then they hired Steve Spurrier, and he gave me an opportunity.
The rest is history there. You're really involved with college football, obviously. I want to talk about the state of the game. I'm not a huge fan of NIL, the portal. I do like what they're doing with the playoff, although I think 8 or 16 is better than 12 because giving a bye to anyone is such a huge advantage without a real path to why they get that. What's your thought? And by the way, I think NIL is good. The players should get paid. But what's your thought of that as an analyst and then also as someone who went through all of that, a while back?
I'm all for NIL what it stands for, name, image, and likeness. Your jersey sales, your autographs, commercials, whatever that is. But just flat out buying players, I don't buy that at all. I think it's ridiculous. But the players deserve to get paid off their name, image, and likeness. The playoffs, I'm excited. They expanded it to 12. I saw a study the other day that since they implemented the 14 playoff 8 years ago, I think only 10% of the teams that play Division I football have made it. But if you would have had the 12-team playoff back in 8 years ago, I guess 2004, 33% of the teams would have made it. Now, it probably still would have been the same teams winning it all, but at least you can say, hey, our program made the playoffs. That can go a long way for some coaches. And what's ironic is the Gators would have made it a couple of years under Dan Mullen.
Yeah. Well, I think some teams would have won. You never know once there's a playoff, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about it. Do you have any opinion on 4 teams getting a bye? I think it's such a huge advantage. How do you figure out who those 4 best teams are?
Well, is that what they're planning to do? Is 4 teams get a bye?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
They're going to be blowouts. They're blowouts in the 14 playoff now. They're going to be blowouts in the first round when they go to 12. But I didn't realize 4 teams get a bye. I disagree with that.
Yeah, I think, there's no real way. There's unbalanced schedules and all these conferences aren't like how everyone says, well, we know who the 4 best teams are, but do you really? I mean, that's just people who are talking. Everyone thought, there's all these teams that would have been there and then they get killed. Who knows who else would have done? I do like it. 12 is better than 4. I think most people who like the expansion would agree with that. When you were playing in, back at Florida, winning the first SECs really brought Florida into the map. When did you think you had a chance to go into the NFL?
Oh gosh, I wasn't real sure. I mean, when I graduated and went to the combine, I was only 180 pounds. The most I ever played in the National Football League was 195. So I didn't really know if I'd get an opportunity because of my size. I was 6'3". I just couldn't gain weight. I'm like 215 now. People are like, man, you're small to play pro ball. I'm like, dude, I'm like 30 pounds heavier than when I played in the pros. So um, I knew playing under Steve Spurrier, I'd have an opportunity because he teaches you the game so well. You understand the passing attack. So, I didn't get drafted. I was a free agent and somehow lasted 14 years.
Yeah, you did. I mean, you did well in the NFL. There's people who get a chance and they don't do well. Why do you think you were able to play well? And I guess on the flip side, what could have happened that would have given you a better chance to play a little bit more for some of the teams?
Well, the only reason I lasted 14 years, the average career of an NFL player is 2.5 years. I lasted a long time because of my mind. I was fortunate. I didn't have a photographic memory, but I didn't have to study my playbook ever at any level. A coach could draw a play up on the board, tell everybody their responsibility, their assignments, and that's all I need. I could tell you what everybody did after that. Never had to look at it again. So that's how I lasted a long time. When you're a backup, mostly coaches have to trust that you're going to know what to do because you don't get to practice. You just stand around. And so I bounced around to 6 teams in my 14 years. I was in Chicago 7 of those 14, but I lasted in the National Football League because of my mind, how I understand X's and O's. And, who knows if I'd had the physical stature and the arm strength, maybe I would have been a full-time starter, but it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, a lot of Gators, great quarterbacks throughout the history, but not a ton of success. Rex obviously went to the Pro Bowl. You played a little bit with Danny when Spurrier became the Redskins. What is it about like certain schools that have, Florida's done very well in other positions, but what is it about certain schools that have success in positions in the NFL? Is there anything to any of that?
I don't think so. I think it's all about what your God-given ability, how big you are. Nowadays it's all about how big's a guy, what's his velocity when he throws. It's a lot of intangibles that sometimes don't mean a damn thing when you play quarterback. Quarterback comes down to 3 things: decision making, being accurate and anticipating, and being tough. It doesn't matter how strong your arm is. Yeah, it's great to have a strong arm, but it's more accuracy and anticipating and your decision making are the most important parts of being a quarterback.
Yeah, I think we always talk about the difference between success and not success, and some of it's luck too. Let's talk about Saturday night's game. If Miller catches that first interception, game over, right? If we drop that in the end zone, you get another play, maybe kick a field goal. Not a lot of that. I mean, obviously there was not a great pass either way, but some of it has to do with, all right, it was lucky this guy dropped the ball.
Yeah, that game was well played by 2 good teams the other night, but you're right. A couple of plays here or there could have gone either way. Florida fumbled and lost it early. ETN fumbled later in the game, recovered his own fumble. Anthony rolled left, threw across his body. It hit their defender right in the chest. He drops it. And then we converted on 4 fourth downs, which is unheard of. And then one of their turnovers, when we had a goal line stand, it was 4th and 1. The previous play, the tailback would have walked into the end zone, but he slipped. So football, pretty much sports are a game of inches and a play here or there. But yeah, we made the plays when we needed to make them, but it could have easily been a different outcome.
What was the feeling like that in the swamp is, announcing this game and being part of the broadcast, not having Mick there, obviously, but this is your first year as being full-time, right? You were promoted.
Yeah, I did all the road games last year with Mick, and then that was mine and Sean Kelly's first call together, my first home game, and the atmosphere was phenomenal. Sean Kelly's a professional. Mick was a professional, did it his way, but Sean's done so many sports, so many worked for ESPN for a long time. I thought he had a tremendous call Saturday night.
What helped you get to that point to help you go through and be able to, to do the game like this?
Never had a training session in my entire life. They called me last year, said, "Would you like to be the color analyst on the road games?" I was like, "Okay, I've never done it." They're like, "You'll be fine." Never practiced. My first road game was Kentucky last year. Just showed up in the booth, and Mick and I called the game. And Sean Kelly, our new guy, met him a couple times at practice. We didn't practice, we didn't rehearse, we didn't do a thing, and just kind of let it go Saturday night, and feel like things worked out pretty well.
Probably the podcast helped too, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm on, this is like 220 something. The more experience you get talking, the more comfortable you get.
Right. Well, I mean, it's talking football. I mean,
yeah.
It's what I've done my whole life, and all you got to do is just kind of describe what happened on each play for the person that can't see it. So it's not like I'm not talking about curing cancer or anything like that. It's football.
Do you have to like the people in the broadcast? I know it helps, but do you have to like them?
You mean my partner?
Yeah, whoever you're in the broadcast. We've seen it over the years with broadcasts on like Monday Night Football that changes a lot, and even some of the college football.
Well, I've only done it with Mick Hubert and now Sean Kelly, and obviously Sean and I hopefully will be together for a long time. Our spotter's awesome. He was there last year. Obviously, Jeff Cardozo's in the box doing stuff. Steve Egan's the producer. I can get along with anybody.
Yeah, I think it's. I watch PTI a lot, and you genuinely can tell how much they like each other, which I think kind of helps in the banter, because you're going to do a play-by-play, but you have to have a little bit more than just being mechanical about this is the play. I mean, you got to add some commentary and have a little bit of a flow for people who are listening. And these days, people love to listen. They love to sit in their chair and watch a game, and they love to listen instead of being. I was at the Swamp. It was hot. It was sweaty. It was rainy, uncomfortable. I mean, before the game even started, the guy next to me was like, "Hey, you got to move over. You're sitting in my little nudge of the seat." I mean, it's not for everybody to sit in there.
No, I've sat in the Swamp multiple times. I'm not a big fan of sitting in stadiums, maybe because I never really had to do it because I was a player for so long. It's just not very comfortable. And then having to listen to people around you that think they know football, it drives you insane. So, but that's what makes the sport great. It's we love our fans, and looking forward to more calls.
I think it's great how connected you are to the university. There's not a lot. Not everyone is that way. They bring people back, for certain specialties, and I see people go on, in the stadium or on TV, and they're not even wearing any Gator stuff. Why do you think some players just didn't? They don't connect, after their playing days?
I don't know the answer to that. I've been around football, sports my whole life with my dad being a coach and athletic director. It's in my blood. I never expected to do podcasts, radio shows. I have a business degree from Florida, but I never used it. And then once I was done playing and retired in 06, I coached Little League, I coached high school, I did everything. And then just got asked to do a couple of pregame shows and some other talk shows, and it just kind of evolved, and started my own podcast. I didn't, like I said, when they asked me to do my own podcast, I need somebody to host it. I'll be the so-called analyst. I need somebody to host it. Like, you'll be fine. So I've gotten better over time. But I love the University of Florida. It's done so many great things for me. It's just when you're not playing, it's cool to be a part of a team. And that's what Coach Spurrier always talks about. When you're being an athlete, you've always been a part of a team in some aspect. And, now that I'm part of the radio broadcast, I feel like I'm part of the team again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a diehard fan. I use the word we, and I've never been on the team. Some people think it's weird when you do that, but I went to school there. I go to, I don't know, 4 or 5 games a year, for all the sports. So I'm a Gator. I consider myself part of the Gators, maybe not particularly the team. There's something about it, just having that feeling that people don't understand, different from pro sports as well. Over the years, I've become a much bigger college fan than the pros. Is that the same for you because you've played? Although I mean you've been in both, but now you're much more a part of the college game.
I've always been a college fan. Didn't matter who was playing on TV, I'd watch them. I love the loyalty and the passion in college sports. Now, that's changed a lot in the
Yeah.
last year with kids not real loyal to their schools and bouncing around. But I still love the game. I love college, and hopefully they can get a hold of this NIL stuff and transfer portal and get it under control.
Do you have a favorite memory in Gainesville when you were playing on the field, and then also in Gainesville, not off the field, not football related?
I mean, there's so many things that stand out as a player. Obviously, my first start, Coach Spurrier's first game of his coaching career here against Oklahoma State was one game that will always stand out. And then winning the first ever official championship against Kentucky, and then the following week beating Florida State, who was highly ranked. So those are the things that probably stand out the most as a player in Gainesville. Off the field, uh, I'm a small town guy. I don't like big cities. That's why I kind of made Gainesville uh, my home when I started playing pro ball. It was my all-season home. I never lived full-time in my NFL city. I rented a town home or an apartment furnished. All I would take were clothes, and my kids would stay there until Thanksgiving. And then once Thanksgiving was over, they'd go back to school in Gainesville. So they loved it. They got to go to two different schools every year. Uh, but I don't have a favorite thing about Gainesville. I just love the small town college atmosphere.
I think that has changed over the years too. In 20, I mean, they
Yeah.
built, they've added everything. I remember when I was there, even after you were playing, nothing was there. Now, I mean, there's everything that's anywhere. It still has that college town feel to it, but it still is a much bigger city, I think, than it was when we were there.
No, there's no question. I live way out west, so I don't even get near campus. Probably the only time I go to campus are on game days. I just stay away from that area.
Yeah, it gets some of the traffic was pretty wild. Well, speaking about Gainesville, you ended up doing some coaching in the area. Your son, I think you coached your son as well. What was it about coaching that made you want to get involved?
Well, sometimes you have a calling in life. My calling really is coaching. I just wasn't able to fulfill it. I always wanted to be a college coach, but it never worked out because I played too long. If I had been cut or never made a team in the National Football League, I would have been in coaching immediately right out of college. Because if you look at the track record of a football coach, they usually become a graduate assistant right after playing.
Yeah.
And having played 14 years, I was 36, and 36 to start at the bottom as a GA, I ain't doing that. Plus, I wanted to be able to see my kids, my daughter and my son, be involved in their activities. I coached so many Gator coaches' kids in high school that I guarantee in their high school career, those coaches only got to see them play maybe 2 or 3 times live. And I couldn't imagine not being able to be at the game watching my kid play or my daughter dance or whatever it is. So it all worked out, but my calling is really coaching.
Yeah, I would if I could go back, way back, and start thinking about my future. College basketball would have been what I would like to have coached. But you got to start, be a manager on the team, and by the time I was thought about doing it, it was way too late and didn't have any experience. No one was going to give me a shot at that. Spurrier was your coach in college. He was your coach in NFL. What was the difference between Coach Spurrier for both of those?
I tell you, I've always said this: if he had played, being in the NFL, if he had had a owner that didn't mess with stuff, Dan Snyder was a terrible owner.
Is
If
he's still is.
yeah, he still is. So, and then if he had, I always say this: if he had a legitimate starting quarterback, I mean, he had me and Danny, Patrick Ramsey, a couple other guys after I left and went to Cincinnati after that with Marvin Lewis, but he didn't have a legit quarterback. His X's and O's are as good as anybody, and play calling is as good as anybody. Um, he and I butted heads at the Redskins because I'd already been in the league for 7 years, I think. So when we would install stuff, I'd make suggestions from a protection standpoint, things of that nature that I knew we had to do because I've seen it for 7 years in the league, and he hadn't experienced it. So it was an honor to play for him. It was cool to play in Washington, but his mind is unbelievable. I mean, he's going to go down as one of the greatest coaches of all. I mean, he is one of the greatest coaches of all time.
We don't see a lot of success of college coaches long term. Is there something to that? Is it just, hey, what team did I get to, or is there a mindset of a coach between college? What's your opinion on that?
Well, Coach Spurrier is more of a players type coach, kind of a father figure to people. And that Redskins team in year one had guys like Darrell Green and Bruce Smith on it. I mean, these dudes they were old. And it's just, I don't think, and this is just my personal opinion, you had rookies who were 22 years old and you had some guys who were 40 something years on a team. It just was different for him. And I think college coaches, that's the biggest adjustment for them because, when you're a college coach, you're kind of in charge of them. When mom and dad drop you off at school X, that's your new dad and he's in charge. Well, in the NFL, guys are going homes to their wives and girlfriends and what have you. I just think that's just a dynamic that people overlook when college coaches go to the pros.
Yeah. Would you recommend top college coaches to go take a shot at the pros? I mean, they're rumored every time there's an opening.
Well, in the past, I would say no way because I was always a big college guy. And I just love the atmosphere of college programs. Now, with the transfer portal and NIL, I don't know how college coaches stay college coaches. I wouldn't want any part of it.
Money, probably. That's got to be a big.
Well, yeah. There's no question, but it's just there's too much uncertainty and too many issues with this NIL, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's talk about the podcast for a little bit. Why did you start it, and what do you like about it?
Well, I do it 5 days a week, which is rough. During football season, it goes by fast, though. But in the dead time, it's hard. But I just had a couple of people approach me after I was doing, some analyst stuff for the Gator networks. And I was like, I don't know about this. But they talked me into it, and we've been going about 2.5 years now, and it's been a tremendous success.
Yeah, it's just great to be able to chat. I mean, I love chatting about football, but any sports or really about anything with people who are passionate about it. It's really about the guest and just having a conversation. That's what we love to do here on the Wolff Den. I assume you have access to better guests being who you are, and you have people who probably set that up.
No, I do all the guests. I do it all myself.
Okay.
I wish I need to get somebody to do all that because that would make my life a lot easier. Because, sometimes, as you probably know, you schedule somebody and something comes up and they can't do it, which I totally understand. But sometimes other people don't understand that, I guess. And it kind of screws up your schedule. But I do get some good guests. But during football season, I kind of have a set deal with beat writers and things of that nature that come on.
Speaking about writers, the Gators moved up in the polls here. Is everyone make too much about what happens in week one? Forget about just the Gators, but we're anointing these teams the best in college after 1 week. That's part of the fun of college football, but it also does matter, what people think, especially the ones that count when they're voting you in to try and get towards the end. What are your thoughts about preseason rankings and rankings after week one?
I mean, I get it. Fans love it. It's something for them to talk about, brag about. I am extremely surprised that Florida jumped up as high as they did. I think they're 12th in the AP poll and 19th in the coaches poll. 19 sounds about right. Coach Spurrier and I talked about today. We thought they'd be like 22 or 23. So maybe the media knows more about this team than we do. I don't know.
Well, they didn't have them ranked. I thought they should have been ranked beforehand, but who knows? All these teams, it's just so hard to tell. I mean, do you get a chance to watch any of the other college football, or do you watch the highlights? Do you watch a lot of that?
I watch a ton of college football. there's three teams that I think are just clearly better than everybody else: Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State. Now, Ohio State sputtered a little bit, but I just think the talent level on those three teams, it's like night and day compared to everybody else.
I was surprised that Notre Dame hung around. I was talking to my friend. I said I would have laid the points, and they could have covered, but it took a little bit of time for Ohio State. I think that's more of an indication of what I think about Notre Dame, who I think is always overrated. And
I agree.
They want the Dallas Cowboys, like they want them to be good, but they're not. I think the one best thing for me about this alignment and all of that is that Notre Dame, I think, is going to have to join a conference eventually. That might be the only good thing, I think, from all this major alignment.
I agree. I'm not a huge fan of Notre Dame in anything. I just, because they have their own network and all that kind of stuff, and they're independent. So anytime they lose, I'm excited.
Yeah, and the Gators play at Notre Dame. The schedule really, I go to away games every year. I mean, this in like 2 or 3 years, our away schedule really beefs up to some really high.
Well, I was talking to somebody about that other day because I think we have Texas will be in the league, but we have Colorado and Cal, I think.
Arizona State.
I'll be surprised if we actually play those games.
You think they'll have to change them based on playoff and realignment?
I think that once OU and Texas come in, this is what the other gentleman was telling me, and he knows more about this stuff than I do. But he's like, I doubt we go to those places, but we'll see.
That'll be all. I mean, I already have my schedule picked out from 26 to 31. It's like,
oh wow,
it's crazy. Just all the good games, and that's what you want to have that environment of Utah, top 10 team. Obviously, we didn't know they were going to be top 10, but they were a Big Five school coming in. You announced it's the largest, attendance. Yeah, because we played a very good team as opposed to the cupcake that we usually do in the first.
No, I mean, I understand fans' standpoint. I agree, but I also think you need to have at least one cupcake. For two reasons. One is because I'm a coach's son and I coached and I understand how it works. Every kid's dream is to play in a place like the Swamp or Tiger Stadium or Bryant-Denny Stadium. And so those kids, whether they weren't Power 5 athletes or what, they have an opportunity to roll into Georgia and play. But it's also a payday for their programs. It's important for those schools to maintain playing football. And from a Power 5 standpoint, you beat up on a team like that, you get the walk-ons into the game that never get an opportunity to play, that practice just as much as your starters. So I'm in favor of one cupcake game at least.
Yeah, but to start or
just whenever. I mean, maybe later in the year. I don't know when.
We have a couple of them in there.
Yeah, so
they'll get a chance, and then you might be Virginia Tech, and you go to Old Dominion and you lose.
Yeah, it happens. We lost to Georgia Southern that one year.
Yeah, that was, and they didn't complete a pass all game. It was, can't figure college football out. It's like, man, that's why it's so great. I don't care if they have 12 or 16. The regular season is always going to mean enough. There's very few teams that are just going to be able to coast without having to win a ton of games and be able to afford just a bad loss. Obviously, good teams are going to lose. So I'm excited to see that. What do you miss having to be in a broadcast from a college football game day?
By having to broadcast, the biggest thing away games, if the Gators were playing away, obviously I would be at a buddy's house or at home, we'd be grilling, cooking out, watching all the games. So I missed that last year. This year I found out week 1, it's kind of the same way. I used to be the guy that watched tons of games, still would go to the Gator game. Sometimes would leave, depending on how it's going at halftime, because I could get home before the second half kick and be in my recliner and not have to deal with traffic. The damn traffic Saturday night drove me insane. I didn't even leave campus until almost 2 hours after the game because I had stuff to do. But they were doing construction on campus. Don't even get me started on that one. They shut down one whole road that just why they couldn't do that over the summertime makes no sense to me. But I did miss a lot of college football that I'm used to watching.
Yeah.
But that goes with the job.
The Gail Lemmer was one way down. It was such a huge. It was crazy how the traffic was.
Well, they got Museum Road blocked off both ways, so that's one of the main roads on campus.
Yeah, and we usually grill a little bit or hang out, but there wasn't that much opportunity to do that. Is it what's your go-to food or beverage when you're watching college?
Well, it depends on wherever I am, whatever they're cooking me for the most part. I mean, you can't always. I mean, I'm a big burger guy. I love burgers on the grill. Beer, Crown, whatever I'm in the mood for.
Yeah, it's weird. We tailgate. I was there at 7 a.m. on Saturday. My friends love to tailgate. We go. I mean, they don't mess around. But some of them get like so blitzed beforehand. I'm like, I love to be a present in the game, but some people love to do that. I mean, you could still drink, throughout the day and not get bombed. But I do think the Utah fans were very complimentary about the environment. I've been to almost every stadium, and I've been to another 25 stadiums in college. I think Gainesville is middle of the road for tailgating and pregame atmosphere. Have you been to a lot of other places?
I have. I mean, now I haven't tailgated a lot of places, but from the atmosphere within the stadium, pregame, all that, I think it's as good as anywhere.
I mean, outside the stadium.
Oh, the outside. I mean, there's no place like Ole Miss. No place.
Yeah.
And LSU.
I think and I've been to a bunch. The only tradition that I know that's better than this new Tom Petty thing is maybe Wisconsin jump around. I think that's as good as anything in college football, in stadium, kind of, what the fans are doing. Do you have any, have you seen anything else that's sort of compared?
Well, in Tuscaloosa, they play Dixieland Delight's pretty good. I'm a country music guy, so it's pretty cool. When they sing Sweet Home Alabama, kind of the same way. They sing both of those. Trying to think anywhere else.
I was there a long time ago. See, I don't remember that, but I was there.
Yeah, you can Google it and see what they do Dixieland Delight and Sweet Home Alabama.
I mean, South Carolina does Darude Sandstorm at the beginning of the game, and that's as wild as I see in a stadium and get loud. It's good. How much does that help the crowd for if you're a quarterback, if you're a player trying to get hyped up before the game and actually find some inspiration during the game?
Well, from a quarterback standpoint, it depends on who you are. It didn't really hype. I don't get hyped up for anything really. You got to be mentally into the game. I think crowd noise, things like that, are more for the defense because it's more reaction and being aggressive. Offensively, you have to be thinking so much, and you hope your crowd understands. Don't be making any noise when you're on offense.
Yeah. I was so impressed with how sound Utah was mentally. I mean, they were just so impressive. That's basically kept them in the game. And the Gators have had trouble with that over the years. I said if we can win the turnover battle and the penalty battle, we're going to win the game easy. Before, I mean, that's pretty obvious to say, but there are teams that struggle with that. And basically, we almost won without that. We got the turnover at the end. How do you clean something like that up? Is that a coach? Is that a coaching thing?
No, well, they're very sound. I agree 100% with you, and it's a reflection of their coach. I mean, they had 2 turnovers. They had the fumble on the 4th and 1, and the interception last of the game. We had 1 turnover, had a couple other chances, but the biggest thing is I was impressed with Utah because they only had, I think, 2 illegal procedure, two offensive penalties. One was the center move. The other one was a delay of game that they took
on purpose.
So the crowd can affect you. I don't want this to sound wrong, but I thought they handled the humidity, the travel, the crowd noise. I thought they handled it very, very well.
Yeah. I didn't get to see a lot of replays. I was sitting there thinking, are we in Utah? Or I thought that the referees made some really wild calls, especially the one drop And the other thing that surprised me is that I didn't see, and maybe I'm wrong again, I didn't see Napier argue or question any of it. Is that something that
Well,
you
it,
saw?
it happened very fast, and they spotted the ball extremely fast. And what happens is a coach has a guy designated up in the press box for those type of things. But you got to remember, if you're that dude and you say, Coach, you need to review that, you better be pretty sure
Yeah.
that you're not going to lose a timeout. So it happened so fast. And it all also happened right on our sideline. So a lot of guys saw it. He didn't catch it, but good thing it didn't cost us.
And then it looked like they got an extra timeout, and like they were
No,
allowed.
what happened?
They
What
were allowed
happened
to
with the
huddle though. They were allowed to huddle like a basketball team was. I feel like that seemed crazy.
Yeah, the whole thing there is they did call timeout, but Jadarius Perkins' helmet came off on that play, so he has to leave the game, and it's like a dead ball. So they didn't get an extra timeout. It seemed like they did though.
I just wouldn't allow. I don't know what it seemed like they were huddling when they should have brought him back on. I don't know. It was just a weird feeling sitting in the stands like that. I don't like to blame the refs too much. At the end of the day, you got to go out there and play. I feel that same way about coaches too. Like I'm real excited about Napier. The Gators had every opportunity to win and win big when Mullen was there, and in some respects they did. How big of a deal is it once the game day is there for the coach? How much is the coach going to win or lose games? Because I think they get too much credit for losses and wins sometimes.
Well, this dude has really changed the culture of the program. He is a sharp dude. I thought his offensive game plan was phenomenal. Took what our players do well, and that's all they did. And so just got to keep building on it. You know, he says everybody wants to crown the Gators right now, but that game's over with. You got to move forward to Kentucky.
Week. No,
exactly. And this is a team that we can beat, but we can also lose to them. I mean, they're a pretty good, solid team.
Yeah, I mean, everything you built up in week one could go right out the window 1 week later. It could be bad. I thought the first down was a little bit too predictable. There was always like a run.
That's what you're going to see. That's what you're going to see. That's what they do. That's what they do.
Well, I think he's going to be just fine. I think the Gator fans, like any other fan base, you probably get it with your podcast and just hearing stuff. There's a lot of people who are way out there and they'll never be happy about anything, and those who never think we could do anything right, and those who think we can never do anything wrong. I have a big bias. I'm a Gator fan. I always think that we can win every game, and I think there's no reason why we shouldn't feel like we can win every game going into it. Is that the feel? I mean, we should be favored every game moving forward, possibly until Georgia. It doesn't mean we'll win every one, but that means you should be in every game and have a good chance to win if you play your game.
Yeah, protect. We won't be favored at Tennessee. They'll be favored over us.
Yeah.
Tennessee's favored this week at Pittsburgh by like 8 points. So people think Tennessee's pretty good. We'll see, but we gotta take care of business against Kentucky. Got to win that game.
Yeah, I want to go back to your college career. You were the beginning of the Gators' entrance to college football, and largely considered one of the best Gator players in the history. There's a list about that. We can argue before. Where do you think the Gators are in the realm of college football landscape? I don't think we're at the first tier with some of the schools that you talked about as it stands today. But where do you think we are, and do you think we can get back to that top tier? Because we obviously were there a few periods of time.
Yeah, we can get back. It's going to take some time. I said he won't have the roster the way he wants it till year 3. He's got the blueprint for success. It's just going to take some time to get there.
But is the Gator program, are we second tier?
We're not now that we have a facility. We were before that.
Yeah. Like teams like Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, even Georgia now, I guess, even though they only won once. We'll see what happens again. You were actually got a lot of votes on the Heisman. I want to ask you about the Heisman. You had some votes there. Were you in New York for the ceremony?
No, I was not. No, they'd only invited like 3 people back then. That's what they do now. For some reason, I didn't get an invite.
Do you like the way the Heisman goes now? Is it too much popularity contest? Is it too political? Or is it generally, I think the best players are there?
For the most part, they have the best players there. It'd be interesting to see how it all plays out this year. I said it'd probably be C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, or Will Anderson that will get invited, but yeah, we've only played 1 week.
And I know that hit that Anderson had, everyone wants to crown him the Heisman. It was nasty.
Yeah.
I remember when Clowney had that hit. I think it was against Michigan, a hit like that. Who's the best player to not win a Heisman? Is it Grossman? I mean, Eric Crouch was a pretty good player, but
no, I mean, right off the top of my head, I would say Rex. I mean, I'd have to really sit down and think about it, but probably Rex.
Yeah. All right. Well, what was your favorite? Couple more, and we're going to let you go. What was your favorite stadium to play at? Do you have one?
Probably LSU.
Oh, it was always a crazy night game up there. I was there. The whole stadium knew that that Les Miles was going to do a fake, except the players on the field. It feels like we lost to them a few times where everyone in the stadium knew he was going to do a fake, and it's like the players on there didn't know, and it's the ball bounced right into his hand, and away we go. Is there a place that you've never been in college that you'd like to go to?
I've been to Georgia's stadium, but I didn't get to play in it.
How about calling a game?
Well, I've only called 6 games on the road, so I'll go to A&M this year, and I'll be at Tennessee this year. So it'll be different ones than last year.
Yeah, A&M's got a great. I was there for the Manziel, the first game, and they were in the SEC. They got a great environment there. I think the stadium is just so, but the environment, game day environment, is pretty awesome. We're gonna let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question we let everyone go with. You could spend a day with anyone in the world, 24 hours. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who would it be, and what would you guys do?
Oh my goodness, I never even thought about that. I would probably say if golly, I don't really ever think of anything like that. I'm a huge golfer, so maybe Fred Couples and Tiger and Jack Nicklaus, and we'll go play golf.
Yeah, Freddie C was one of my favorites. Great choices there. Really appreciate your time. Excited about listening to you in the broadcast and the upcoming season, rest of the season. So check out Pod Up with Matthews in the morning, Monday through Friday, right, 8 a.m. And tune in to the Gator programming every game day. And excited for you and to see what happens next. And go Gators.
All right, Matt. Appreciate it, buddy. Take care.
Thanks, Shane.